Noah ferebee. Audience, if you could show yourselves. I'm currently on a quarantine, so bear with me. My grandmother's there on the FaceTime. So, what are some things these athletes have in common? No, it's not just some cool celebrations. These are three of the most accomplished athletes of our generation. From winning gold medals, to championships, to holding world records, these folks have a lot in common. Most interestingly enough, though, they all share a common standard that the best way to succeed is through their mentality. Kobe Bryant, Tiger Woods, and Usain Bolt all share what is known as a killer mentality. In simpler terms, a growth mindset. Basically, a growth mindset is a psychological phenomena which tricks a person's mind to achieve better results based on a positive attitude. Growth mindsets are harnessed everywhere, whether it's studying, public speaking, but the most famous cases are found within sports. I, throughout the years, have learned to inhibit a growth mindset through basketball, alongside my research throughout various scholarly articles, books, magazines. So today, I'm going to discuss reasons athletes learn growth mindsets, how or why it exists, and the physiological effects it has on them. I'll also be discussing some techniques on how athletes channel this phenomena. So without further ado, let's get started. We ask ourselves again, what is a growth mindset? How does it work? Well, a growth mindset is a progressive mindset used to positively impact one's performance. In an issue of a 2009 Olympic coaching magazine, growth pioneer Carol Dweck stated, a growth mindset is a mindset that guides one's responses to self-reflect and challenge the personal ability in the face of a setback. In a growth mindset, an athlete learns from their mistakes, and they adapt. For example, say you're playing basketball and you miss that game-winning shot from the corner. You might practice that same shot over and over 100 more times until you have it nailed. Unless you have a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is essentially closed-minded. An example of this would be a young golfer who seems to never practice, seems to never take advice, and when they fall, they give up. The reason I mention a fixed mindset is because psychologically, you don't feel the same neural responses as you would with a growth mindset. Recent research from a 2018 study observed by neuroscientist Bede Gig identifies potential neural correlation between the adoption of a growth mindset and intrinsic motivation. First off, let me explain what a neural correlation is. Similar to how memory works, when someone changes their pattern of thinking, the neurons inside of your brain are stimulated, and they create links amongst each other. Ning's research implies that these neural correlations and these neural connections, while not allocated to a sport necessarily, they can be activated while you're practicing or in preparation beforehand. In a separate study, thanks to Dr. Young from a 2012 project called Motivation of Extended Behaviors by Anterior Cingulate Cortex, we've come to find that this occurs within the anterior cingulate cortex, inside the frontal lobe of your brain. That would be right here. In a similar study conducted in 2016 by an academic group called OUP, we also see neural activity within the ventral and dorsal regions of the prefrontal cortex, which controls your error monitoring and behavioral adaptations. That would be that right there. Now that we understand the psychological aspect of a growth mindset and how that works, we can move on to the physiological aspects or the effects on our body. When learning a growth mindset, you essentially trick your brain into producing more dopamine, or the happy hormone. The channel Lift and Balance thoroughly describes this in their video, Biohacking Dopamines to Build a Growth Mindset. They say that when you divert the focus of your feelings to the focus on how you can improve, you trick your brain into producing dopamine rather than its natural response to produce serotonin, or the sad hormone. We'll take Buffalo Bills wide receiver Stephon Diggs, for example. This picture is from last year's AFC Championship game. For you Bills fans, I'm sorry. After losing, Diggs stayed behind to watch the opponent's team ceremony. Diggs, rather than mope around, rather than be sad, he used this energy as fuel, and he learned from his mistakes. It might seem absolutely crazy, but Diggs was happy after the loss, and he posted that he was feeling quote-unquote inspired and motivated on Instagram. In addition to the studies show that In the short term, having a growth mindset boosts psychological and physiological recovery. This study was conducted by Richard W. Robbins and Jennifer L. Powles back in 2010. Robbins and Powles, following Carol Dweck's research, took a group of university students and simulated socially stressful tasks. They measured their heart rate, and they eventually came to find out that those who were student athletes were often much calmer. The athletes also frequently asked more questions and were more open to learning skills, while the non-athletes were found to become agitated and were prone to giving up. Research also shows that the tasks were completed faster and at a better rate than most other students who didn't experience or inhibit a growth mindset. With a better understanding on the body's reaction, you can see why most athletes choose to adopt a growth mindset. So let's dive a little deeper on their reasonings and why athletes learn a growth mindset. There are many different reasonings, each person with their own respectively. One being, for some athletes, it's to boost their mood. For most, it's used to boost their performance. Kobe Bryant, also known as the Black Mamba, once said in his autobiography, The Mamba Mentality, How I Play, that his reasoning is all about focusing on the process and trusting in the hard work when it matters most. He said, it's the ultimate mantra for the competitive spirit. It started just as a hashtag that came to me one day, and it's grown into something athletes and even non-athletes embrace as a mindset. A little about how his mindset originated is during Kobe's first ever playoff performance against the Utah Jazz. Kobe had 4 air balls out of the last 5 shots, one being the shot to win the game. If you are not a basketball fan, that is abysmal. But ultimately the Lakers were swept. After this series, though, Kobe trained all summer and created the mentality for himself. The Lakers went from being a first-round exit onto winning the next 3 championships. All while Kobe averaged over 28 points a game, his highest being 35 points a game. This is Kobe's air ball. I don't know if you can see it very well. And this is Kobe hitting a game winner. Moving on, another athlete's advice, professional golfer Tiger Woods' reasoning for a growth mindset is that, quote, under pressure, you can win with your mind. Woods proves the story to be true, as in 2008, Woods won the U.S. Open whilst literally on one leg. Woods tore his ACL during the tournament, and he accredits all his success to, quote, those who don't let their emotions get the best of them. You can find this quote on Bleacher Report's article on Tiger Woods' testimony. Quote, just being aware of the growth mindset and studying it and writing about it, I feel compelled to live it and to benefit from it, says Carol Dweck when she was talking to some student athletes with her interview within Marina Krakovsky's Stanford magazine. So, famous athletes use this mindset, but how do they use it? How do they harness it? Here's some techniques that athletes use to strengthen their mindset. All information here was gathered from a Nike article in 2020, and it's titled 6 Habits of the Athletic Mindset. I won't be going over all 6 to save some time, but the 2 most important techniques I found were to be 1, talking to yourself. Talking to yourself in strategic ways is dubbed by experts as self-talk. It's something athletes use almost universally during challenging moments. Talking to yourself during moments of pressure can give you some motivation and help you envision your shot or envision the play before it even happens. Here I have a little guy talking to himself just to represent what that looks like. Now, usually the language is non-judgmental, but it's rather supportive or instructional. So, for example, you could say, good job, Noah, or keep going, keep going. Number 2 is ownership. Ownership is, in short, taking full responsibility for your progress, and ownership allows for the athletes to take initiative and strive for their goals. And if they claim them as their own, they're more likely to succeed. It's like babysitting. As you can see here, I have a woman taking care of a baby. If you take care of the child as if it's your own, you are more likely to keep the child safe. If you take care of the sport as it's your own, you are more likely to succeed and prosper. All in all, These points help us dive deeper into the mind of an athlete. A growth mindset is a psychological phenomena which tricks a person's mind to achieve better results based on a positive attitude. Today, we've gone over the 4 main points: psychology behind the growth mindset, how the psychology leads to the physiological effects, why athletes learn growth mindsets, and the techniques that they use to strengthen their mentality. So, remember folks, when you fall, try again, get up. Who knows? You might be the next Kobe Bryant. Thank you guys.